Under the pale glow of the mining colony's streetlights, the air felt heavier than usual. The kind of weight that made people speak in hushed voices and glance over their shoulders. The colony had always been a quiet place, far from the main shipping lanes. A place where people came to work, save their money, and dream about leaving one day. But lately, no one talked about leaving. Instead, they talked about the men who had gone missing. It started with a worker from the ore processing plant. He had been seen after his shift heading toward the forest. Someone said he was following a tall figure, moving with a strange, graceful motion. The next day, he was gone, his quarters untouched, tools still on the workbench. The security chief had assumed he ran away, maybe to another colony, but then it happened again and again. People whispered about it in the mess hall, about women no one recognized, taller than any human, with glowing patterns along their arms and necks, and eyes so bright you couldn't look away. They appeared only at night, on the edge of the forest. They never spoke, never made a sound. They just looked at a man, and he would start walking toward them. No hesitation, no fear. Like a dream he couldn't wake from, some called them star sirens, saying they were from an ancient race that lured men to their doom. Others said it was some kind of alien slaver trick. Whatever the reason, no one who followed them was ever seen again. Rafe didn't believe any of it. He had been the colony's security officer for 6 years. And in that time, he'd seen every kind of lie, every kind of cover story, in his mind. These missing men had probably just skipped out on their contracts. Maybe joined some black market crew for fast money, but then it happened to his friend, Joran. Had been more like a brother than a coworker. They had eaten together, worked patrols together, and shared the same jokes about the colony's endless boredom. One night, Joran told Rafe he was going to grab some fresh air before bed. He never came back. Rafe pulled the security cam footage the next morning. The image was grainy, but clear enough. Joran was walking toward the tree line. And just ahead of him, there she was, a woman unlike any human. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dark, with those strange markings that pulsed like light under the surface. Her hair moved like it was in water. Her eyes, Rafe couldn't look at them for long, even on the recording. The strangest thing was Joran's face. He wasn't afraid, he wasn't even curious. He looked peaceful, like he was going somewhere he had been waiting for his whole life. And then, as the footage showed them stepping between 2 trees, the image blurred, and they were gone. That night, Rafe sat in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling. He had the feeling he had been wrong about everything. Maybe this wasn't desertion. Maybe these men weren't running away. Maybe they were being taken, but why and how? He decided he wasn't going to wait for another man to vanish. If these alien women were taking people, then he was going to find out where. He checked his sidearm, packed a small flashlight, and made sure his comm unit was charged. Then he waited by the edge of the forest. Hours passed. The forest was still. The wind carried the faint metallic scent of the mines, and Rafe's boots felt heavier with each step he took along the patrol path. Then, just as the moonlight hit a patch of pale grass, he saw movement. She was there, about 20 meters away, standing just beyond the first line of trees, taller than he expected. Every line of her body smooth and inhumanly graceful. Her glowing eyes locked on his as if she had been expecting him. She didn't speak, she didn't gesture. She just turned and began to walk deeper into the forest, her long hair drifting as if underwater. Rafe felt a strange pull, like the world around him had narrowed down to her alone. He gritted his teeth, reminding himself why he was here. His hand brushed against the grip of his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. Instead, he followed her, every step taking him further from the lights of the colony, further into shadows that seemed to swallow sound itself. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. It felt thicker, warmer, and there was a faint glow coming from plants he didn't recognize. vines with flowers that seemed to breathe. Opening and closing in slow rhythm, Rafe's ears strained for sound, but there was nothing. No insects, no rustle of leaves, only the crunch of his boots on the soft ground. The alien woman glanced back at him once, her gaze locking onto his. Again, and for a moment, his thoughts scattered. He forced himself to keep moving, each step echoing in his head. The forest seemed endless, until finally, they reached something impossible. Two massive trees stood side by side, their trunks twisting into one another like living pillars. Between them was a veil of shimmering light. Rippling like the surface of water in sunlight, the alien woman stopped, turned to face him fully, and tilted her head, her glowing markings pulsing brighter. She stepped through the light without hesitation, disappearing instantly. Rafe stood there, breathing hard, his heart pounding in his ears. He could turn back now, walk away, and maybe no one would ever know. But Joran was on the other side, and so were all the other missing men. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, took one last look at the dark forest behind him, and stepped into the shimmering light, feeling it swallow him whole. The light around Rafe shifted like liquid, warm and strange. It pressed against his skin as if he were walking through water without getting wet. For a moment, he couldn't see anything. His mind spun with 1,000 thoughts. Was this a portal? Was he walking into a trap? Would he even be able to come back? Then the glow faded, and he was standing in a place unlike anything he had seen before. The air was clearer, warmer, and carried a soft scent like fresh rain mixed with something sweet. The ground beneath his boots wasn't soil-like in the forest. It was soft and smooth, almost like walking on a carpet made of tiny blue leaves that shimmered faintly under a golden light. Ahead of him, the alien woman kept walking, never looking back. But somehow he knew she was aware of his every move. Her long limbs moved with a rhythm that didn't belong to humans. Her glowing markings pulsed in slow waves, lighting the path ahead. Rafe glanced around and realized the sky above was different. It wasn't night here. It wasn't even the same sky he knew. Two suns hung above the horizon, one pale gold and one a deep orange, casting shadows that overlapped and danced across the strange blue grass in the distance. There were tall, crystal-like structures that looked almost like trees, but glittered in the sunlight. Their trunks twisted in elegant spirals. Small orbs of light floated lazily among their branches. Moving as if alive, Rafe's heart pounded. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, but his curiosity was stronger. This place was too real to be an illusion, too detailed to be a trick. The alien woman slowed her pace as they approached a slope that led down into a wide valley. Rafe stopped at the top, his breath catching at the sight below. Dozens of alien women moved gracefully through the valley, their glowing markings like living rivers of light weaving across a land. They carried baskets filled with glowing fruit, their movements so fluid it felt like watching a dance. But it wasn't just the alien women. There were men there too, human men. Some Rafe recognized from the colony. Others he didn't. They were alive, but something was different about them. Their skin looked healthier, their movements quicker, and their eyes. Their eyes glowed faintly, just like the alien women. One of them, a man named Voss, who had vanished 3 weeks ago, turned his head and saw Rafe. His lips curved into a faint smile. There was no surprise in his expression, only a calm certainty. He didn't run toward Rafe, didn't shout for help. He just nodded slightly, as if telling him, "You'll understand soon." Rafe's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. These men didn't look like prisoners. No chains, no guards, no fear in their eyes. In fact, they looked happy. The alien woman leading him finally stopped at the edge of a small pool of clear water, its surface reflecting the twin suns like a sheet of glass. She turned to face him, her eyes meeting his, and in that moment, something strange happened. It wasn't speech, not in the way humans spoke. Instead, thoughts that weren't his own began to bloom in his mind. Memories, feelings, flashes of places he had never been. He saw vast star fields, alien cities carved into mountains of crystal, and battlefields under black skies. He felt emotions too. Deep loneliness, loss, longing. The images came faster, showing him alien men who once stood beside these women, tall and strong, their markings glowing even brighter in battle. Then he saw them falling, one by one, against an enemy that was nothing but shadow and fire. The connection faded, and Rafe stumbled back, breathing hard, his mind trying to catch up with what he had just seen. The alien woman stepped closer, her expression unreadable, but her eyes held a weight he could almost feel in his chest. She pointed toward the human men in the valley, then placed her hand lightly on his chest. Not pushing, not forcing, just letting her touch linger. And once again, images bloomed in his mind, this time softer. He saw these men training, moving alongside the alien women, learning to fight as one. He saw them laughing around fires, their eyes glowing brighter with each passing day. He felt their strength, their speed, their unity. And he understood these alien women weren't just taking men, they were changing them. Rafe wanted to ask why. Why humans? Why the secrecy? But before he could form the thought, she turned away and began walking toward a narrow path that led deeper into the valley. She looked over her shoulder, her gaze locking onto his again. A silent question in her eyes. Would he follow? Rafe hesitated. His instincts as a security officer told him he needed to return to the colony, to report what he had seen. But there was another feeling inside him. Something quieter but stronger, a pull toward this strange, glowing world and the woman who had led him here. His boots crunched softly on the blue grass as he stepped after her, his eyes scanning the valley again, looking at the men, at their faint smiles, at the way they seemed so at peace. None of them tried to leave. None even looked like they wanted to. The air grew warmer as they descended, and faint music, or something like it, reached his ears. It wasn't made of words or instruments. It was like the sound of the wind through crystal, soft and endless. By the time they reached the bottom of the slope, Rafe realized one thing. Whatever was happening here, it was no simple abduction. These men hadn't been taken against their will. They had chosen to stay, and the real question was why. And somewhere deep inside, Rafe feared he was starting to understand. Rafe followed the alien woman deeper into the valley, each step sinking slightly into the soft blue grass that seemed to glow under the light of the twin suns. The air was warmer here, almost comforting, and the strange scent of sweet fruit mixed with the faint metallic temps of the crystal structures. Nearby, his eyes kept drifting to the human men scattered among the alien women. Some of the men were working alongside them, carrying baskets of the glowing fruit, their movements perfectly in sync. Others were repairing strange, curved tools made of a shimmering metal Rafe had never seen. A few sat by the edge of a wide, calm stream, their feet in the water, laughing with the alien women as if they had been here their entire lives. Rafe's mind kept circling the same thought. These men didn't look like captives. They didn't have fear in their faces or chains on their wrists. They looked free, yet none of them were leaving. The alien woman who had brought him here walked ahead without speaking, her movements fluid, every step like part of a dance. Now and then she would glance back at him, her glowing eyes unreadable, as if waiting for something. Rafe's gaze locked on a man sitting beneath a tall crystal tree. The man's face was familiar. He had been a mechanic at the colony before he vanished. Rafe quickened his pace and stopped in front of him. "What is this place?" Rafe asked, his voice lower than he expected. The man just looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. "You'll understand soon," he said, his tone calm, almost gentle. It was the same line Voss had said to him earlier. The same calm certainty. It sent a shiver down Rafe's spine. The alien woman touched his arm lightly, and in that instant the world around him seemed to fade. It was like falling into a dream while still awake. Her touch opened a flood of images in his mind. He saw her people's homeworld, a place of endless valleys like this one, skies painted in gold and violet, towers carved from living crystal. He felt the joy of their lives before the war. Then the images shifted. He saw dark shapes blotting out the sky, an enemy that moved like living. Shadows, their attacks destroying entire cities in moments. He saw the alien men of her species, tall, strong, marked with brighter patterns than the women, fighting to protect their home. One by one they fell, until none remained. Rafe felt her grief as if it were his own, an endless ache that had lasted centuries. Her people had survived, but without their men, their future was slowly dying. The images changed again, showing space, fleets of ships, and then humans. He saw the first meeting between her people and human explorers. The way the alien women had studied them, how they discovered something rare. Human men were not just physically compatible with their species, but mentally and emotionally as well. The connection broke suddenly. And Rafe staggered back, breathing hard, his head spinning from the flood of sensations. He looked around at the human men working in the valley. Their glowing eyes, their calm smiles, and he finally began to piece it together. The alien women weren't taking men to harm them, they were bonding with them, joining their lives together in some deep, permanent way. The bond wasn't just emotional, it was physical. It changed the men, making them stronger, healthier, their senses sharper, their lives longer. But it also tied them to the alien woman forever. They could no longer live without her. Rafe's instincts screamed danger, but there was no malice here. The alien women treated the men with care, like something precious. They fed them, trained with them, worked beside them. The valley was peaceful, beautiful even. But Rafe knew peace could still be a kind of prison. The alien woman gestured for him to follow again, leading him toward a pool of water so clear he could see the smooth stones at the bottom. She knelt beside it and touched the surface with her fingertips. Soft ripples spread outward and faint. Glowing symbols formed on the water before fading. She looked up at him, and though she didn't speak, her meaning pressed into his mind. She had chosen him. She wanted to bond with him, but she would not force it. He would have to choose. Freely, Rafe's jaw tightened. The temptation was there. The images of the men in the valley showed lives without hunger, without pain, without the grinding work of the colony. But the other part of him, the part trained to protect, whispered that there was more to this, something he still didn't understand. He crouched beside the pool, staring at his reflection. The faint shimmer of light in his own eyes made his stomach twist. Had she already begun to change him, even without the bond? He realized that her touch, the connection, had left something behind. The alien woman's gaze didn't waver. She simply waited, patient as the stones beneath the water around them. The sounds of the valley continued: soft laughter, the gentle hum of alien tools, the rustle of the crystal leaves in the breeze. But Rafe felt the moment narrowing, like the air itself was holding still. He stood, stepping back from the pool. Her eyes followed him, but she didn't move. Her expression was unreadable. He turned his gaze toward the path that led deeper into the valley, and for the first time since stepping through the shimmering light, he wondered if he was still in control of his own choices. Whatever this place was, it wasn't just a safe haven. It was something more, something with purpose. The men weren't here by accident, and now neither was he. Rafe walked slowly beside the alien woman, strange blue grass brushing against his boots, the warm air wrapping around him like a blanket. Every step deeper into the valley felt heavier, not because the ground was difficult, but because his thoughts were. He had seen the truth of this place, at least part of it, and now he needed to understand the rest. The alien woman didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Her presence was constant beside him, her movements quiet and graceful. She seemed to know exactly when to slow down so he could look around and when to lead him forward. They passed a group of human men training in an open field. Rafe stopped to watch. The men moved in perfect unison with the alien women, practicing. With long, curved blades that shimmered faintly in the sunlight, their strikes were fast, precise, almost too perfect. It was as if they were reading each other's movements before they happened. Rafe noticed something else. The alien women didn't seem to be teaching in the way humans did. There were no shouted commands, no verbal instructions. Instead, they simply moved, and the men followed as if the motions were flowing directly into their minds. The alien woman at his side looked at him, and he felt that strange pressure in his head again. Not painful, but impossible to ignore. A stream of thoughts, not words, poured into him. Images of battles, training, shared strength. He saw how the bond worked. Not just a link between minds, but between bodies. When an alien woman moved, her bonded partner felt it instantly. When she fought, he fought with her. Their strength combined into something more than either could be alone. It was beautiful, in a way, but Rafe couldn't ignore the other side of it. The bond also meant that the men couldn't live without their partner. Not truly. If she died, so would he. And if he tried to leave her, it would tear him apart from the inside. As they continued walking, Rafe saw more signs of the bond. A man sat beside his alien partner, their hands just barely touching, their eyes closed. Yet Rafe could feel the quiet connection between them. Another pair worked in the gardens, planting glowing vines together, moving like they shared the same heartbeat. The alien woman led Rafe toward a wide, flat stone near the center of the valley. There, a small gathering was taking place. Human men and alien women sat in a loose circle, their eyes fixed on one pair in the middle. A man knelt before his alien partner, his hands resting over hers, their foreheads touching. Rafe didn't know what ritual he was watching, but he could feel the air shift, thick with something electric. The markings on the woman's skin glowed brighter, and the man's eyes began to shine faintly with the same light. Rafe felt the connection happen even from where he stood. A sudden wave of warmth and certainty, the kind of feeling that could make someone give up everything for it. The alien woman turned to look at him again. And for a moment, Rafe understood without words. She could give him that same bond, the strength, the connection, the sense of never being alone again. He stepped back, his mind torn between curiosity and caution. He wanted to know what it felt like, but he also knew that once he felt it, there would be no turning back. It wasn't just a choice, it was a surrender. They walked away from the gathering, moving toward a quieter part of the valley where a waterfall spilled into a deep, clear pool. The water gave off a faint glow, reflecting the twin suns. The alien woman knelt and touched the water, ripples spreading out in slow, even circles. She looked up at him, and the question was there in her eyes again. Rafe knelt across from her, the water between them, his reflection mixing with hers in the rippling surface. He wanted to speak, to ask why they had brought human men here instead of simply asking for help. But before he could open his mouth, the connection bloomed again, stronger this time. He saw flashes of their long journey, the desperate search for a species they could bond with, the failed attempts with others who could not survive the process. He felt the fear of extinction that had haunted them for generations, the loneliness of carrying life forward without a partner. He felt her own loneliness most of all. The bond wasn't just about survival for her, it was about connection, about not being alone anymore. She had chosen him, and now she waited for his answer. Rafe pulled back from the connection, his heartbeat loud in his ears. He stood up, looking out over the valley, at the human men who had already chosen, at the peace in their faces. and the unbreakable tie that now defined them. Part of him wanted to stay, to let go of the endless work and danger of the colony, to have this strange, glowing life where everything felt connected and certain. But another part of him refused to give away his freedom. No matter how beautiful the prison might be, he turned back to the alien woman, his voice steady but quiet. "I need time," he said, even though he wasn't sure if she could hear the words the way humans did. She didn't move to stop him, didn't try to convince him further. She just watched as he stepped back from the pool, her expression calm, but her glowing eyes holding something deeper, something that felt like waiting. Rafe knew then that she wouldn't force him, but she wouldn't forget him either, and somehow that thought unsettled him more than anything else he had seen in the valley. Rafe stayed in the valley for several days, though he could no longer tell exactly how time passed here. The light of the twin suns shifted in ways that didn't match the day and night cycle he knew. Sometimes the sky glowed golden for hours. Sometimes the orange sun dipped low, but never set. It was a place where time seemed to stretch and bend. The alien woman who had brought him here never left his side for long. She guided him to different parts of the valley, showing him the way her people lived. He saw fields of glowing plants that curled open when touched, revealing fruit that seemed to hum softly in his hand. He tasted water from springs so pure it was almost sweet. He watched alien women and human men building strange, curved shelters together, their movements perfectly in sync. It was peaceful, so peaceful that Rafe began to feel the edge of his caution dulling. There was no shouting here, no heavy machinery, no hunger, no exhaustion. The air itself seemed to make him feel stronger, more awake. Even his old scars ached less. But at night, when the valley was quiet and only the glowing plants lit the ground, his mind wouldn't let him rest. The question kept coming back. If this place was so perfect, why didn't the men come back? Why didn't they even try? One night, while the alien woman slept on a woven mat beside a slow-burning fire, Rafe rose silently and walked away, the cool grass brushing against his boots. He kept moving until the sounds of the valley faded behind him. The slope upward was gentle, and soon he found himself on a narrow trail that led toward the shimmering light he had stepped through days ago. Halfway there, he felt it, not a sound, not a touch, but a pull in his chest. His steps slowed without meaning to, and he knew. It was her. She was awake now, and she knew he was leaving. He turned and saw her standing several meters away, her hair moving in the faint breeze, her glowing markings softer than usual. She didn't run toward him, didn't try to grab him. She just stood there, watching. Rafe's voice came out rough. "If I leave, will you follow me?" Her answer came without words, sliding into his mind like a whisper in the dark. "If you leave, you will forget." The thought hit him like a blow. Forget the valley, the men, even her face. All of it would fade from his memory if he went back. It would be as if none of this had happened. He swallowed hard, his mind spinning. And if I stay? This time the feeling was heavier, deeper. If you stay, you will be mine. And I will be yours, always. It was the truth, plain and unhidden. If he stayed, he would live in this valley, bonded to her, never wanting to leave, never needing to. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The wind stirred the blue grass, carrying the scent of the valley, the faint hum of distant crystal trees, and the quiet heartbeat that was somehow not his own. Rafe thought about the colony, about Joran and the others, about the life he had before stepping through the light, the endless days of work, the long nights of silence, the constant weight of duty. Here in this place, there was no duty but to exist, no hunger but to be with her. It was tempting, more tempting than he wanted to admit. He took a step toward the shimmering light. Her eyes didn't change. Her expression didn't harden. She simply let him go, and that hurt more than if she had tried to stop him. The light felt warmer this time as he stepped into it, wrapping around him like a tide pulling back to the shore, and then he was standing in the forest again, the cold air of the colony's night biting at his skin. The distant hum of machinery breaking the silence. Rafe blinked, looking around. For a moment, he couldn't remember why he was here. He tried to recall the last few days, but it was like trying to grab smoke. Pieces of memory slid away before he could hold them. He checked his gear. His sidearm was still there, his flashlight still in his belt. Everything looked the same. Yet something inside him felt different, stronger, sharper. He walked back to the colony, the streetlights glowing faintly in the thin mist. People noticed him the next morning. They looked at him strangely, as if something about him had changed. When he passed a reflective window, he caught a glimpse of his own eyes for a second. He thought he saw a faint glow before it faded. At night, as he lay in bed, he dreamed. The dream was so clear, it felt real. The alien woman, standing in the valley, looking at him with that same unshakable gaze. Her hand reaching toward him. He woke with his chest tight, the memory slipping away, but the feeling staying behind. Rafe didn't understand it then, but he knew one thing. She had let him go. But she hadn't truly let him go at all. Somewhere, a connection still remained, a thread between them that no distance could cut. Days passed after Rafe's return to the colony. Life looked the same as before. The same dusty streets, the same rumble of the mining machines, the same tired faces in the mess hall. Yet Rafe felt different. It was hard to explain. His body seemed lighter, but stronger. His senses sharper. He could hear the faint hum of a power generator from far away. He could see details in the distance he had never noticed before. Even the night no longer felt completely dark to him. At first, he thought it was his imagination. Maybe the mind playing tricks after whatever strange dream he had in the forest. But deep down, he knew it wasn't a dream. He had been somewhere else with someone else. And even if the memories were blurry, the feeling was real sometimes. While walking his patrol route, he would suddenly stop, his chest tightening for no reason. And in his mind, he would see flashes, a hand touching the surface of a glowing pool, the curve of blue grass under twin suns, eyes that glowed softly. In the dark, the images would vanish in seconds, but they left him shaken. The colony had not forgotten the missing men. People still whispered about them, though now with less fear and more resignation. They were gone. No one expected them back. But there was something strange. Since Rafe's return, no other man had disappeared. The alien women had not been seen again. One evening, while reviewing security reports, Rafe caught himself staring at the forest on the screen, a still image taken by a motion sensor camera. It showed nothing unusual, just trees and shadows. Yet he kept looking, as if waiting for movement, for a figure to step out and look straight into the camera. That night, the dreams came again, stronger than before. He was standing in the valley under a golden sky. The alien woman in front of him, her gaze fixed on his. She didn't speak. But he felt the same pull in his chest, the same warmth flooding through him. When he reached out, he woke up in his bed, his hand still outstretched in the dark. Over the next weeks, the changes became harder to ignore. His reflexes were faster. He could catch falling tools without thinking. He could sense when someone was behind him before they made a sound. Food tasted stronger. Air smelled cleaner. Sometimes he could even sense the emotions of the people near him, a miner's frustration, a clerk's nervousness. Rafe kept all of it to himself, but a part of him feared what was happening. If the alien woman had changed him, what else could she do? How much of him still belonged to himself? One afternoon, while on patrol near the outer fence, he heard something, not with his ears, but in his mind, a soft whisper that wasn't made of words. It was her. He knew it instantly. The feeling was the same as in the valley, the same as in the dreams. He froze, his heart pounding. The whisper wasn't a message, just a presence. A reminder that the connection was still there. He looked toward the forest, and for a moment, he thought he saw movement between the trees, a flicker of light like the glow of her markings. Then, it was gone. The following days, the dreams turned into visions. They came even when he was awake. Quick flashes of the valley, of human men training with alien women, of crystal structures rising higher, of weapons being forged. There was a sense of urgency in these images. Something was building, something was coming. Rafe began to understand the valley wasn't just a place to hide. It was preparing for something. The men who had stayed weren't simply living there. They were becoming part of a force that would one day be sent into the galaxy, late. One night, he woke with his chest tight, the connection stronger than it had ever been. He could feel her emotions, not just see her face, determination, readiness, and something deeper, something she had felt since the moment she first looked. At him, she was calling him not with words, but with the bond that still lived inside him. Rafe sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. He knew then that she had never truly released him. She had given him the choice to leave, but she had left a piece of herself within him, enough to guide him back when the time came. And now the time was coming. He didn't know how he knew, but he was certain. The connection pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and unshakable, calling him toward the forest again. Toward the place where the light waited, toward her, the morning came. Cold and still, the kind of silence that seemed to press down on the colony. Rafe woke before the sun had fully risen, his chest already tight. The connection to her pulsing stronger than ever. It wasn't just a faint whisper now. It was a steady pull, like invisible hands guiding him. He dressed quickly, moving through the quiet streets. No one was awake to see him leave, the air outside. The main gates was crisp, carrying the scent of the forest. Every step toward the trees felt both familiar and strange. His heart beat in time with something that wasn't entirely his own. By the time he reached the forest edge, he didn't have to search. She was there, standing just beyond the first line of trees. Exactly as he remembered, her glowing markings were brighter now, her eyes holding that same unshakable gaze. She didn't move to meet him. She simply waited. Rafe stepped closer, his breath clouding in the cool air. He wanted to speak, to ask why she had called him back, but the moment their eyes met, the answer filled his mind. Not in words, but in images. He saw the valley again, but it was different now. The human men, trained harder, their movements sharper, weapons gleaming in the light of the twin suns. The crystal towers now bristled with strange, curved devices that hummed with energy. The air itself seemed alive with preparation. Then he saw what they were preparing for, a vast shadow moving through space. Swallowing light, ships like jagged blades cutting across the stars. A force so massive it dwarfed anything he had seen. Before, the images showed alien worlds burning, fleets scattered like leaves in a storm. The message was clear. The threat was real, and it was coming. Rafe's breath caught as he saw the faces of the human men in the valley, their eyes burning, with the same glow as their alien partners. Their movements perfectly in sync. They were ready, but they were not enough. She needed more. They all needed more. The vision shifted, showing him himself, standing beside her. His movements matched to hers in perfect unity, the bond complete. His strength no longer his alone, the two of them moving like one. When the vision faded, he realized his hands were clenched into fists, his pulse racing. He understood now why no man had ever returned. They hadn't been taken as captives. They had stayed by choice, knowing what was at stake. They had given up their old lives because the new one was not just about survival, it was about protecting both their worlds. The alien woman stepped closer, and for the first time, she spoke aloud. Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight that made his chest ache. "It is time." Rafe looked at her. The choice he had once been given was no longer distant or hypothetical. It was here. Now, he could walk away, return to the colony. Pretend the visions were just dreams, but deep inside he knew he couldn't. Not anymore. The bond between them had been growing since the moment they met. Even when he had left, it had been there, waiting. He thought of the men who had gone before him, of Joran, of the calm certainty in their eyes. He thought of the people in the colony, unaware of the danger moving toward them through the stars, and he knew what his answer would be. He stepped forward until he stood directly in front of her, the glow from her markings casting faint light across his face. Her hand rose slowly, hovering just above his chest. When her palm touched him, the world shifted. It wasn't like the visions before. This was deeper, stronger. A flood of energy and emotion that filled every part of him. He felt her presence fully for the first time, not just in his mind, but in his bones, in his heartbeat. He could feel her strength flowing into him and his into her. The bond locked into place with a certainty that left no room for doubt. They were one now, two beings moving with a single purpose. He could feel her relief, her trust, and something else that surprised him, a quiet joy. When the light between them faded, Rafe opened his eyes. The forest around them seemed sharper, the colors richer, every sound clearer. He could hear the distant rustle of leaves, the faint hum of energy from her body, the steady rhythm of her breath. She turned toward the shimmering light between the two massive trees, and he followed without hesitation. The portal's glow wrapped around them, warm and familiar, and then they were in the valley again. The men who had bonded before greeted him with knowing smiles. The alien women nodded in quiet approval. There was no ceremony, no applause, just the unspoken understanding that he was one of them now. Rafe looked out over the valley, at the training fields, the crystal towers, the preparations for the coming war. And for the first time since stepping into this world, he felt no hesitation. The colony, the life he had known, was behind him. Ahead was the fight they had all been chosen for. And when the time came to face the shadow moving across the galaxy, he knew he would not face it alone. He would face it with her, always.